Hey AP Stat, as promised, you have a video about experiments. You're welcome. All right, so keep in mind that a well-designed experiment is actually the only thing that can show us a cause and effect relationship. So keep in mind that our experiments, we conduct them because we want information and we want to know if something is causing a certain effect. And if it's well-designed, we can do that. So that's the beauty of it. So with that in mind, we need to have something we're manipulating so we can see what response it might force to occur. And we can then measure that response. So in an experiment, you need to remember that the experimenter is actively and deliberately manipulating factors to control the details of the possible treatments and randomly assigns the subjects to those treatments. So there's some vocabulary here that we need to talk about. In an experiment, we do have an explanatory variable and a response variable, just like we did in linear regression. But this time, we're going to talk about the explanatory variable as being a factor in our experiment. So what you need to remember here is that we're going to be manipulating the factor so we can measure the response. So within that factor, your factor can have multiple levels. I'm going to illustrate this to you in just a minute. The combination of all the factors and their levels are called the treatments. And then, of course, you need to remember that your subjects or experimental units must be randomly assigned to a treatment. It is really important here that you recognize the difference between randomly assigned to a treatment and having the treatment randomly assigned to the subjects. Those are different things, and they will count off on the AP test if you screw it up. So you need to make sure that you understand that we are randomly assigning our subjects to a treatment. That's why I wrote it in all caps in your notes here. So let's talk about what does this look like as far as in a practical way, this idea of factors and levels and response and all of this stuff. So let's say I work at a weight loss facility, all right? And I want to measure the effect of sleep and exercise on people's weights, all right? So I am going to of course, the response variable is going to be weight, right? Because I'm going to call for volunteers and I'm going to weigh them at the beginning of the experiment, and then I'm going to look at the effects of sleep and exercise on their weight. So when I talk about factors, if I want to look at sleep and exercise, then my factors are going to be sleep and exercise. These are the things I'm manipulating to see what the response will be. So in other words, I am going to be manipulating my volunteers in how many hours of sleep they get and what kind of exercise they're getting. Do you have to have two factors? No, you don't. You can have one factor. If I just wanted to test the sleep, if I just wanted to see how sleep affects your weight loss, I could say, okay, y'all are getting 6 hours of sleep, you're getting 8 hours of sleep, you're getting 10 hours of sleep. So you could just have two levels, 6 hours and 8 hours. So the possibilities are endless. It really doesn't matter. So what you have to think about here, though, for this particular situation is, since I have assigned sleep as a factor and exercise, I'm now going to have levels within those. So I'm actually going to write this down here so that we have more room. So my factors are sleep and exercise. And then within sleep, I'm going to assign my volunteers randomly, of course, to either get 6 hours of sleep or 8 hours of sleep. And I'm just making this up, okay? Don't have a freak out attack. For exercise, I'm going to either randomly assign 0 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes. And then at the end of my experiment, I am going to compare the weights of all these people, okay? So that is what an experiment, that's pretty much the breakdown of it. So let's talk about this idea of factors, levels, treatments, all of that stuff. So if you're looking at this, here are factors. So sleep is a factor and exercise is a factor. So this has two factors right here. Within sleep, I have 2 levels. Within exercise, I have 3 levels. So what are my treatments? Well, my treatments are all the possible combinations. So I can either have 6 hours of sleep and 0 minutes of exercise, or I can have 6 hours of sleep and 30 minutes of exercise, 6 hours of sleep and 60 minutes of exercise, 8 hours of sleep, 0 minutes of exercise, 8 hours of sleep. I don't know why I'm writing SL instead of hours, but whatever. And 8 hours of sleep and 60 minutes of exercise. How many treatments do I have? 6. All right, so I've got 2 factors, 2 levels within one of the factors, 3 levels within the other, 6 total treatments. Miss Griggs, could I have just multiplied the number of factors by the number of levels? Yes. See, 2 times 3, oh my gosh. Math, still working. Get out. Okay, so that is pretty much how you're going to think about an experiment as far as factors, levels, and treatments go. All right, in the next video, we're going to talk more specifically about the 4 principles of experimental design.